Hi guys, maayong adlaw. Welcome to NatzMath TV. So for this video, I will be presenting to you about solving quadratic equations by quadratic formula. There are four ways in solving quadratic equations. So one is by using quadratic formula. We also have by using factoring. We also have by using extracting square root. And we also have completing the square. So for this video, we will focus on quadratic formula. This is a topic in junior high school mathematics. So pahuway sa ta sa general mathematics. So we'll have junior high school mathematics. So for the lesson objective, you are expected to solve quadratic equations by using quadratic formula. Let's proceed to our quadratic formula, which is taken from the general form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So this formula is derived from this general form of quadratic equations. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So when we solve for a quadratic equation using quadratic formula, we have to see to it that our equation is in this form. So our a should come first, then we have the bx, then we have the c. Our c here is the constant. So our quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So we have to take note of the variables here. Actually, these are not variables. These are numerical coefficients in a quadratic formula. Let's proceed to our example. So we are going to solve for x. Given the quadratic equation, x squared plus 12x plus 20 equals 0. So as you have observed, this quadratic equation is already in its general form. As I've said earlier, in solving quadratic equation by using quadratic formula, you have to see to it that your quadratic equation is already in its general form. So we have here x squared plus 12x plus 20 equals 0. So to solve for the value of x, we need to identify first the values of our a, b, and c. So to identify, we have here x squared. That means our a here is 1 because we have an assumed numerical coefficient here 1. So our a is 1, then our b is 12, which is this one, and our c is 20. Now these are the values of our a, b, and c. Now we will substitute these values to the quadratic formula negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So to substitute this value, so we have the negative here, so we copy the negative. Our b is 12, so we have here 12 plus and minus the square root of the same. Our b is 12, we have 12 squared. We copy minus 4. Then our a is 1 and our c is 20. Then that's over 2 times a is 1. Now, you have to remember that if a variable has no numerical coefficient, it is assumed to have a numerical coefficient of 1, the same as with our x squared here. So, even if there is no numerical coefficient written before the x squared, it is assumed to have 1 here. That's why we have a equals 1. So, after substituting these values to the formula, we will now simplify. We have here the b, which is positive 12, multiplied to the negative outside the parentheses. So we have here negative 12 plus and minus. 12 squared is, of course, 144. The square of 12 is 144. That means 12 times 12. Then 4 times, that is negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times 20 is negative 80. Then 2 times 1 is 2. So then simplify further. We copy negative 12, then we have 144 minus 80 is 64. Then we copy positive 2. Then the square root of 64 is 8. So we copy negative 12 plus and minus. The square root of 64 is 8 over 2. This time, we will break the two values of our variable. We will take the positive and we will also take the negative. Since this is plus and minus, this entails two values. So therefore, we will have, the first one is negative 12 we take the plus first, so plus 8 over 2. And the second one is the minus. So we have x equals, we copy negative 12, then we have minus 8 over 2. So what we did here, we just simply break the two values of our variable x because this entails two values here, plus and minus. So we take first the plus, then we also take the minus. So in this case, we will simplify this fraction. So that is negative 12 plus 8 is negative 4 divided by 2, which is negative 2. So our first value for x is negative 2. Now for the second value, we will simplify this fraction. So we will have negative 12 minus 8 is negative 20, that is divided by 2, which is negative 10. So for this specific equation, x squared plus 12x plus 20 equals 0, the value of our x are negative 2 and negative 10. Now to check if these values are correct, of course, we will go back to our original equation, x squared plus 12x plus 20 equals 0. And the first value is negative 2 and the second value for x is negative 10. We will substitute these values to our equation. We will have first the negative 2. So since this is x squared, so that's why we changed x with negative 2, which is the first value for x. So we, instead of writing x, we change that with negative 2. Then we copy the square. We have here the square. Plus we copy the 12 times, of course, the x is negative 2. Then we copy plus 20 equals 0. So when we simplify, negative 2 squared is positive 4. Then 12 times negative 2 is negative 24. And then we copy plus 20, that is equal to 0. Then we have 4 minus 24 is negative 20 plus 20 is equal to 0. Therefore, 0 is equal to 0. That means this value is correct because we got a balanced equation for this value. Let's proceed to x equals negative 10. So we will check using the value negative 10. We do the same process. We substitute. Instead of writing x, we change that with negative 10. Then we copy the square plus the 12. Then our x is negative 10. Then plus 20 equals 0. Then negative 10 squared is, of course, positive 100. Then positive 12 times negative 10 is negative 120. Then plus 20 equals 0. Then we will have 100 minus 120 is negative 20 plus 20, that is equal to 0. Okay, let's proceed to another example. For example, we are given this equation. 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals 0. Again, this equation is already in its general form, so there is no need for us to change this into general form because this is already in its general form. So what we need to do is just simply identify the values of our a, b, and c. So for the value, our a is, of course, our a is 2, our b is negative 3, and our c is negative 5. We will substitute these values to our quadratic formula, which is negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Substitute, we copy the negative here. This is the negative. Since the value of b is negative 3, so we change that with negative 3. Plus and minus the square root of, this is b squared, so b is negative 3. We change that with negative 3, then we copy the square. We copy minus 4. Our a is 2, and our c is negative 5. Then, that is 2 copy. Then our a is 2. Then we simplify negative here and the negative here, multiply, that becomes positive. So negative times negative 3 is positive 3. Plus and minus. The square of negative 3 is 9. The negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. The negative 8 times negative 5 is positive 40. Then 2 times 2 is 4. We simplify these terms inside the radical symbol. So 9 plus 40 is 49. Then, we have 3 plus and minus the square root of 49 over 4. This time, we get the square root of 49, which is 7. So that becomes, we copy 3, we copy plus and minus. The square root of 49 is 7. Then we break the two values, plus and minus. So we will have first the plus, so 3 plus 7 over 4. And the minus, which is 3 minus 7 over 4. So we simplify this fraction. 3 plus 7 is 10, that is over 4. Then we reduce this fraction by dividing both numerator and denominator by 2. That gives us 5 over 2. Then the next value here, 3 minus 7 is negative 4. The negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. So the values of our variable x here is 5 over 2 and negative 1. Now, to check if these values are correct, we will go back to our original equation, which is 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals 0. Then we will check the values x equals 5 over 2 and x equals negative 1. So we will start first with 5 over 2. So that's why we have here the 2. This is, we have here 2, so we copy 2. Then our x is 5 over 2, we copy the square. Then we copy minus 3. Then we have the variable 5 over x, the value. Then copy minus 5 equals 0. Then we square, we copy 2. The square of 5 over 2, that means 5 squared is 25, 2 squared is 4. Then we multiply, negative 3, we assume denominator 1. So 3 times 5 is 15, then over 2. That is the assumed denominator 1 of 3. 1 times 2 is 2. Then we copy minus 5 equals 0. This time, the same process, we assume denominator 1. So 2 times 25 is 50 divided by 4 minus 15 over 2 minus 5. This time, we get the LCD because this is a fraction. We can assume denominator 1 with 5. So that gives us, our LCD would be 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Times 50 is 50. We copy minus. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Times 15 is 30. Then we copy minus. 4 divided by the assumed denominator 1 here, so is 4. Times 5 is 20. Then we simplify. We copy 50, this 50 here. Then negative 30 minus 20 is negative 50. 50 minus 50 is 0 over 4. 0 over 4 is 0. So this is a balanced equation. Let's proceed checking for x equals negative 1. The same equation, we have to copy. X is negative 1, so change x with negative 1. We copy the square. We copy minus 3 times the negative 1 minus 5 equals 0. So negative 1 squared is 1 here. That means negative 1 times negative 1. So we copy 2. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Then negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Then minus 5 equals 0. So 2 times 1 is 2 plus 3 minus 5. This is 5 minus 5 is 0 equals 0. Now let's proceed to our last example. How about we are given this equation? X squared equals 5x. So as you have observed, this equation is not in its general form, but because a general form should always be equated to 0. And since we have here the 5x at the right side of the equation, the right side of the equation should always be equal to 0. So what are we going to do here is that we subtract 5, we use subtraction property of equality. We subtract 5x at the right side. We will also subtract 5x at the left side. So that becomes x squared minus 5x equals, this becomes 0. 5x minus 5x is 0 or cancelled out. So this is now our quadratic equation in general form. But as you have observed, there is a lacking term here, which is the c. So if this is the case, that means our c is 0. So x squared minus 5x equals 0. So to identify the values of our a, b, c, our a is 1, of course. Our b is negative 5. And of course, our c is 0 because we lack c here. So to substitute these values to our formula, we will have, we copy the negative here. Our b is negative 5. Plus and minus, the b is negative 5, then we have the square, minus 4 copy, our a is 1 times our c is 0, that's over 2 times 1, which is our a. Then simplify, Negative times negative is positive. Then we have here negative 5 quantity squared is 25. Then negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Then negative 4 times 0 is 0. So this is cancelled out. So that's why we only have 25 here at the radical. Then 2 times 1 is 2. Then we get the square root of 25 is 5. So we copy the 5 here, plus and minus. So we copy the 5 here, plus and minus 5 over 2. Then we break the two values, the plus and minus. So we have 5 plus 5 over 2. And the second one is 5 minus 5 over 2. 5 plus 5, of course, is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the first value would be x equals 5. The second value, 5 minus 5 is 0. And 0 divided by any number is 0. Meaning, the values for x for this quadratic equation is x equals 5 and x equals 0. Now let's proceed to our checking. Given x squared equals 5x, our original equation, then the values are 5 and 0. Substitute, we have x squared, so this is 5 squared equals 5 times 5, which is equal to 25 equals 25. The same process for 0. So 0 squared equals 5, 0. 5 times 0, so we have 0 equals 0. Okay, that's it. I hope you have learned something from this video. And if you have any questions, just comment down below. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share to your friends. Next video will be about solving quadratic equation by factoring. So this is a 4-part series video about solving quadratic equations. So watch out for that. This is the topic for junior high school mathematics. So thank you and God bless.